This is your ultimate guide to cold calling. I'm going to show you the exact system I've personally used to make 50,048 cold calls and book 345 qualified sales meetings and close almost 40 clients in just the past 11 months. I'm going to break it down in 5 simple steps. First, we're going to go over volume calculations. So how do you actually make enough dials, or have your sales reps make enough dials to hit the revenue target you're looking to get? And prospect list building, how to call the right people, dialing software. So what should you use to make thousands of dials, how to speak, how to give your tonality, how to say the script, and your KPI tracking and optimization. So this is the one that a lot of people could get wrong, but it's how do you actually see where the bottleneck is so that you can optimize your results and then scale it up over time with more sales reps and more cold callers on your team. So step 1 is to calculate your volume. So you need to know how much volume is required to hit your revenue targets, just like we just said. And to do this, I've made you a simple calculator. So you just have to plug in your average client value, your revenue goal, your time frame that you want to hit it, and your close rate. And then it's going to automatically just calculate this for you. And then step 2 is to build your lead list. So how you build your list depends on 2 things, whether you're targeting corporate type of businesses like SaaS, agencies, finance, or if you're going more of the local business route, which is like, people who are on Google Maps, so home services, landscapers, whatever. So let's start with corporate. Clay.com is going to be your go-to platform. Apollo, ZoomInfo, they're popular, yes, but Clay has a very unique advantage in the sense that it has basically unlimited data for just a flat monthly fee. So it's going to give you the company names, the job titles, LinkedIn URLs. It's not going to give you the emails or the phone numbers like Apollo or ZoomInfo probably would, but it's going to allow you to enrich them with other tools within the software that is basically, cheaper than Apollo or ZoomInfo, because they're getting like really expensive. So how do you build your list in Clay? So first you need to find your ICP, right? Who you're targeting. So I would say use a tool like ChatGPT and just ask it, hey, like I'm using Clay to build a list. What are the best filters to use? It's going to give me the industries, the keywords, the job titles, all that good stuff. And then you go into Clay, you find the companies first based on the filters that ChatGPT gave you. And then it's like called Find Companies feature. And then once you have the companies, you just click on Find People within companies. And then you look at your decision makers, you toggle them, and then it'll give you your list of prospects. And then you need to enrich them for their mobile numbers. And the reason why we get mobile numbers is because if you call like the main office number, you're just going to get stuck with receptionists, and their job is to keep you away from decision makers, nothing else. They are there for the most part so that you don't speak to the decision maker. So you don't want to call them. You want to call the mobile number. And how this works is Clay's waterfall enrichment is going to let you basically run the enrichment, is going to basically allow you to use multiple tools to find the mobile numbers within the list. And the best tools to use, you're going to need probably 2 to maximize how many numbers you can get, is Lead Magic and Prospeo. So what's going to happen is if Lead Magic doesn't find the contact, Prospeo is going to try to find the contact. So it's pretty cool. And what you should do is just buy these 2 tools, and then have that you'll get an API key within each of them, and then just go into Clay, add your API key, and then you'll be good to go. You have your lead list on a Clay table here. You go to add column, waterfall enrichment. You go to mobile number here, or number. You add an action, and then you add Lead Magic's find mobile number. Cool. Mobile number here, select. You add your API key or your account, then you save the step, and then you add another step, Prospeo, find mobile number, and then repeat the same process. There's an issue with it now, so I'm just going to turn it off, but I'm going to show you what this looks like in practice. So save and run 10 columns, mobile number found for 3 of them, and then if we had Prospeo running, but it's not working right now, it would have probably found a few of those as well. So that's pretty much how it works. Then for how to calculate your credits, so which plans you need to buy from this, you basically just need to take the volume that you took from the first step, which is like how many dials need to be made monthly. You would assume each tool is going to find 50% of the numbers. So that's basically it. For local businesses, what you want to do is you want to get them off of Google Maps, right? Because they're mostly present on Google Maps. And the best tool to find this is D7 Lead Finder. It's great. So let's say you're targeting plumbers, and then you just pick a city, and then you look it up, and then it's going to find the leads. And there you have a bunch of companies with their websites, their reviews, their office number. Just take the D7 list, import it into Clay, find the job titles, and then do the Lead Magic Prospeo enrichment again. I would recommend that. All right, so now that you have a list of people to call, you want to choose the dialer software that you're going to call them with. There's 2 types you're going to want. You don't want to manually dial by writing numbers and then calling, or have your reps do that. That's a big waste of time, right? You need a power dialer or a multi-line dialer. So a power dialer is a software that will basically automatically call your leads, and then if they don't pick up, it's going to automatically move to the next one. A multi-line dialer will do that, but just at scale. It's going to call like 5 people at once, and then whoever picks up first is going to give them to you. So this just gives you more of a chance to get people to pick up, and the more people that pick up, the more shots on net for you to book meetings. If you're tight on budget, you don't have to get a power dialer. If you actually use HubSpot or Go High Level or Close, they have a built-in power dialer, so you can just automatically use that. But if you want to actually make this a acquisition channel in your company, then using salesfinity.ai has been tremendous for us. It has a beautiful UI. It has all the best features, and it's really easy to get set up. They're not going to send you some compliance form that you have to fill out, and you're not going to have to speak to 5 sales reps or whatever like other tools might do for you. This is pretty simple. You just pay them money. You get a demo, you pay the money, and then you get the tool. So the first feature you're going to need is local presence dialing. So if you come here on dialer and Salesfinity and then dialer preferences, and you go to manage numbers, you want to buy or not buy, it's for free. You just select the numbers based on the area codes. I recommend getting these 4 area codes because they're usually always here present, and they cover most of the states. Because if you're calling leads, you want to, what local presence means is basically you're calling people from familiar area codes that are in their state or city, just so you don't look like a scammer or someone who's like outside trying to market to them. It feels more like, or someone they might know, but they're not, saving their number or whatever. So I recommend 623, 213, 773, and 929. These cover most of the majority areas in the States. And then once you have these, you want to turn on Smart Rotate, because what this is going to do is it's going to automatically rotate the phone numbers while the rep is calling, so that you're not marked as spam. Because if you're calling from the same number like 1,000 times, people are just like the carrier or cellular or whatever they're called are going to kind of catch you, the phone police, and then they're going to mark you as spam, and you're going to get less pickups. The other thing that Salesfinity does is it detects and skips voicemails so that you can only speak to prospects who are live. And next, what you can also do is put your script inside. You don't have to split screen with like a Google Doc like other softwares might have. And it also has an AI feature called Smart Genie, which basically researches your prospects in real time and then outputs information that you can use to personalize your call. And also has advanced analytics. We're going to cover that in step 5. For step 4, once you have a prospect on the phone, you have a list, you have a tool to call them. This is only like half the battle. The other half is getting them to book a meeting. So what you say is your script, and then how you say it. But the difference is how you say it is like way more important. It's 80% of the battle. So let me break both down. For the script, your cold call script should have 3 main parts. So part 1 is the opener. It's the first 15 seconds where your goal is basically not to get hung up on. You just need to create enough curiosity to keep them listening to your actual pitch, which is in part 2. So this opener is like honest, direct, and it works about like 60% of the time if you're actually going to say it with the right tonality. Hey, Dane, yes, it's safe from Netflix. I know I'm calling out of the blue here, so I'll just tell you why I'm calling in 30 seconds. Then you can decide if it makes sense to continue. Is that fair? Most sales reps used to trick people into thinking this was someone they knew, like, hey, John, or whatever. And then they just feel like sold to, they feel kind of scammed and robbed of their time. But if you're just honestly like, hey, this is a cold call, you only give me 30 seconds, it's just much easier. So, after you get through that and they say, yes, well, go ahead, you have 30 seconds. This is your pitch and CTA. This is your number 1 shot to get the meeting. Many reps and many people on YouTube will tell you like, hey, ask discovery questions. This is where you ask like, hey, are you struggling with X or Y or Z or whatever? And this is literally for the discovery call. This is not for the cold call. The cold call, you've interrupted someone in the middle of their workday. All you want to do is just tell them why you're calling, what you want, and move, right? These are decision makers. They're busy people. They don't have time for a stranger to call them and just start asking them like, oh, what software are you using now? And how's your current agency and all that stuff, right? They're going to either hang up immediately or just be annoyed. This is our go-to framework for the value statement. We call it a value statement or a pitch, whatever. This is how you should say it. So we help companies like yours with this solution so that you can achieve this benefit. So our process works by, and then you just give a brief in 2 sentences. We recently achieved this. So you give them some social proof, some case studies, and then is tomorrow or a day better for a brief call just to discuss how this could be tailored for you. So you want to kind of be assumptive about the meeting. Like, hey, is tomorrow or Wednesday good? Not, are you free tomorrow? Because then you're just begging them for the call, right? You want to assume that they're already going to say yes, and you're just there waiting for the reply for them to tell you like a good time, right? So An example of this for like a YouTube ads agency. So we help SaaS companies like yours implement our YouTube ads funnel or system to generate 20 to 40 more qualified demos with decision makers who have budget and authority. So our process works by running video ads to your ideal buyers on YouTube based on their job title and what they watch. And then we send anyone who engages through a simple funnel that educates them, gets them booked in for a demo, blah, blah, blah. And then for the case study, and we actually just booked, like for another SaaS company, just like you, 127 qualified demos with this system. So is tomorrow or Thursday better to discuss your YouTube ad strategy? Something like that. And make sure it takes 30 seconds to read. You don't want it to go on for too long because then they're just going to cut you off and you're like, shut up. So part 3, questions, objections, and sound time. So now that you've pitched them, there's only 3 things that could happen. They will either have an objection, they're going to say no, or they're going to say yes, right? So let me explain how you can handle each one and how you can take each objection and every no to a yes, right? Scenario 3 is the goal. So for scenario 1, let's say they say like, hey, we actually already do this in-house, or we're working with another agency. So what you want to do is use this 3-step framework. So one is acknowledge. So acknowledge what they said, right? Say it was like a great question, and kind of this just disarms them, makes them feel kind of heard, right? Oh, great. It's great that you said that, right? And then handle the objection. So, blah, blah, blah. Sell time. Is tomorrow good for a meeting or after, just to discuss this further? So this is how you handle it. This is historically worked well. So an example of this would be like, hey, we've already worked with another agency. Oh, great. So that shows that you're actually serious about your growth. We actually compliment when our clients are working with an agency. So is tomorrow or blah, blah, blah to go through our process, right? You just want that. That's how you want to handle the objections. It's better than just being defensive and like, no, well, and you also need to develop a question and objection sheet as you go on to cold calling, or as your reps go on to cold call, because as time goes by, you're going to get new objections, new questions, and you always want to have them prepared and memorized, because once they come in, if you don't respond confidently and straightforward and right away, they're going to notice that they kind of shook you and you're not confident, and they're just going to hang up, right? So if you say before, like if I said this, like, oh, that's great, then you're done, right? You have to say, that's great right away after they object. Now, how do you create your objection sheet? Initially, because you're not going to know which objections you have, just have your reps go on, ask ChatGPT based on like you're offering your target audience what the top objections are going to be, and then script them out. Pretty self-explanatory. Now, for scenario 2, what if they say no, right? So these ones are kind of hard to save. And no means send me an email. No means how did you get my number? And no means I'm not interested. All of these count as no. So these ones are very hard because they already have their guard up. They don't even want to tell you the objection that's underlying, because there's definitely an objection there. So what I found to be a good way to do this, and I actually took this from Connor Murray, is basically taking it from a tier 2 objection like this to a tier 1 like these, which is basically say like, okay, well, is that because you already work with an agency or you're doing this in-house? And then that opens them up back to give you the real objection, and then you can take it to scenario 1 where you can acknowledge, respond, and then sell time, right? So you're trying to bring it back up to scenario 1. But a lot of the times this is not going to work, and they're just going to hang up, right? I've been hung up on way too much. And honestly, if you're in a very saturated niche where they get called all the time, probably just give up on this one. They're just going to hang up directly. So scenario 3, what if they say yes? This is great, right? You might be like, oh, well, say if I'm not just going to book the meeting, right? But no, because if you book the meeting right away without having a conversation about anything, 2 things are going to happen, right? They're either going to no-show, or they're just not going to be warmed up enough. They're going to show up to the call, be confused, be like, hey, I just remember speaking to this annoying sales rep 3 days ago. What do you want, right? So what you want to do is you want to warm them up and do some light discovery. Here is where you can do discovery, not in the beginning, because you've given value. They know why you're calling. You're not just a stranger anymore. You're someone who can help them out, who's valuable. So what you want to do is you want to also, and you can also qualify them at the same time. So if you have some qualifications, you can put them here. But what I found to be a good thing to say is like, hey, just before I book it in, I just have like 3 quick fire questions for you just to make the call most relevant to you. And also just make sure it's the best fit. Does that sound good? And then usually they'll say yes unless they're like really busy. And then you can go ahead and ask your normal questions that you would on a sales call. But here, the whole purpose of it is to qualify them, but also warm them up a bit and make sure that they remember you, that you're kind of ingrained in their head, so that when that call shows up on the calendar on Thursday, they're not like, I don't really feel committed to this person, right? You want to have that human connection. So what's your current revenue is kind of direct, I'd say, but you want to ask like, hey, what's your current size? How many people do you have on the team? Whatever. Okay, cool. What are you doing for marketing right now? What's your biggest challenge in that area? Blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, just be like, great, I have all this info. Like, I'm going to use this to make the call worth your time, and I'm going to make this valuable. So let me prepare for this, and we're going to speak then. So just getting them more warmed up and excited for the call. Now that you've done the entire script, now you have an entire script, an objection sheet, a pitch, an opener, blah, blah, blah. What do you do next? So now you need to know how you should say that script, which is 80% of your success, right? You need to sound like a valuable expert who is worth their time. If you're watching this video now and you're still watching till now, it's probably because I'm speaking confidently. I'm not like, hey, you should probably do this. It's like, no, I know that this actually works because I've actively done it, and now I'm speaking confidently about it. That's how you want to sound on a cold call. So you want to sound confident, but also you want to sound non-robotic. So there's two things related to tonality here. It's both of these things. So I'm going to break both of them down. For confidence, it comes down to three things. So it's about being a little bit loud, being a little bit assumptive, and using a downward inflection. So the reason why I want to be loud is because loud people sound confident, right? If you see the guy that's, in the corner of the room and he's being loud, he's not shy of anyone. And being assumptive is basically like, hey, I know this works. I know we're valuable. You're going to hop on a sales call with me. And then using a downward inflection is just so you show that you're not very needy, but also that you're here to make money and move, right? You're here to give value, present value, book the call and leave. You're not here for a long time. You're here for a good time. So an example of this would be, if someone gives a cold call and they're like, hey, it's Safe from NetSwick. I know I'm calling out of the blue here, so I'll just tell you why in 30 seconds, then you can decide if you want to continue. Cool? And it kind of sounds like annoying, salesy, and it sounds like I'm going to be here for a long time. But if I'm like, hey, it's Safe from NetSwick, I know I'm calling out of the blue here, so I'm just going to tell you why in 30 seconds, then you can decide if you want to continue. Cool? Much different, right? You feel inclined to say yes to that guy. You feel kind of scared. But this guy, you don't feel scared. You don't feel inclined. You just feel like saying no because he's Mr. Nice Guy, and, he sounds like a weirdo. So that's pretty much it. So once you have these three things down, you want to sound not scripted, because I have trained a rep where she sounded confident. She also sounded kind of robotic, and it didn't really work well. So I kind of learned that you need to be not scripted as well. What that comes to is practice. It's practice. You have to practice every single day saying the script, and it just has to feel natural. It just has to feel like a conversation. And another thing that I found to be a cheat code in the meantime is to actually add punctuation to your script. So like commas for places that you're going to pause, and then underlining for emphasis, just to match your speech patterns. So that'll just make it easier to sound human while you're reading still directly from a script. So that's also another tip. But step 5. So now you have a list of people to call, you have a tool to call them, and you know what you're going to say to them. What do you do next after you make that cold call, after you book the meeting, and after you do 1 week worth of cold calling? You need to track your KPIs, right? If you want this to be profitable, if you want to actually scale this up and consistently add more reps, you need to track your KPIs. So Sales Fidelity tracks these automatically, right? But you can also use a spreadsheet, whatever you want. So the first KPI is dials to connect rates. So your target here is 7%. This is basically out of the people you've called, how many actually picked up that were the right people. So if you have, for example, 100 people who picked up, but 50 of them were the wrong person, they were a gatekeeper, or it was like a different human being and the number was just bad, then that is pretty much a data problem. You need to revise what I told you and not use Lead Magic and Prospia, right? Or whatever tool you're using. And then if you're getting let's say only 20 pickups, but you're calling tens of thousands of people, then you know that your number's showing up as spam, or you're just calling at the wrong time, right? So this is how you do it. But your dial to connect rate is calculated by how many people picked up minus the wrong contacts that picked up, because wrong contacts are not connects. And then connect to conversation rate. So this is basically out of the people who picked up, how many people let you pass the opener. So after you said your opener, you're like, hey, I'm calling out of the blue, blah, blah, blah. They said, oh, sure, pitch me, right? You want to get 40 to 65%. If your tonality is on, this skyrockets. Almost everyone says yes. They're like, I want to hear this guy. And then conversation and meeting rate is 10 to 30%, which basically means out of the people that you pitch, how many turn into a call. And if this isn't good, then your value statement isn't good, the offer isn't good, or the script is maybe a little bit too long, or you're just not handling objections correctly, answering questions correctly with the frameworks that I've taught you. You want to consistently monitor these KPIs, and then based on the numbers, you can be like, okay, this is where I'm struggling, this is how I can improve, and you can actually make data-driven decisions so that you can make an ROI with this channel. So that's pretty much it. If you want us to build you your entire outbound funnel, including cold email and calling, you can book a call below on this YouTube video. You can also find this doc below. Please subscribe and have a great rest of your day. Hope you found this valuable. Peace.